Hello, thank you for joining me at Bert's Books, where this time we are going to be looking at Soccer Thug by Frank Clegg. In the interests of good taste and diplomacy, I've obscured the political emblem on the cover star's jacket here. This, on the face of it, looks fairly typical of a strand of pulp literature that was popular, particularly around the mid-70s, I think. The Yoblit novel, as exemplified by the works of Richard Allen. You might even assume this was a Richard Allen title, maybe written under a pseudonym. Not the case. Frank Clegg, we've met him before under another name, and it seems maybe slightly unlikely, but Frank Clegg, it's a pen name I think only used once for this. Frank Clegg is a pen name for Christopher Wood, who is the author of the Confessions series of books, for which of course he is far better known. So in this case he charges his arm at a bit of Yoblit. So what are we to expect from this title? Well, the cover star there, he kind of looks like he might be in a bad Sham 69 tribute band. So I suppose fairly typical cover treatment of this kind of genre, although the jacket doesn't really look right on him, does it? It looks like they've borrowed a jacket from a photo shoot for one of those biker novels and stuck it on a fairly generic sort of 70s, like a grown-out skinhead look, grown-out suede head even. Soccer Thug being the story of Striker, which I think some years later was the name of, there was this tacky cartoon, I think it might have even been in The Sun, about this footballer called Striker. Christopher Wood got there first with that, evidently. Anyway, the cover blurb tells us Striker wasn't all bad. He did enjoy aggro and birds and the roaring power of his Triumph Bonneville. But the big... So I told you there's a biker crossover to some extent here. But the big thing in his life was the United football team. It doesn't say who or where United, it's just United. And especially the flamboyant Irish superstar Donnell. Striker followed United everywhere, ready to support his team on the pitch and its reputation off field. His fervour dropped him into trouble with the police, with rival fans, and trouble with Rantic, who wanted to take over the gang. But whether it was women or aggro, Striker usually knew how to look after himself. Usually. Soccer Thug, and it's one word apparently. Soccer Thug, a violent, shocking indictment of the violent of the violent world of the terrace tearaways. So Striker in this, he's a bit of a rough customer, but I think it's fair to say he's not a Joe Hawkins. You know, we're going to be in inevitable comparisons with Richard Allen territory here, but so it actually opens up to football chants. Presumably these go to a tune of sorts. I've no idea what tune this would be to. United, you're not fit to wipe my arse. Probably worth pointing out at this point just how much of this book is taken up by football chants, either that or football banter. The first line in it is a football chant. Striker, he's actually inside. I think he's already in prison here. The prison is within earshot of the football ground, so he's kind of taunted by the chants from matches that he's not able to get to. Striker, it turns out, is inside for something he didn't do. Someone put the finger on him, which was this daffy old man who runs, I forget if he runs a cafe or something, I think he runs the tea stall at the pitch, but some trouble broke out between United's crew and some rival fans, and it got a bit out of hand, and this guy pointed Striker out to the police, who pulled him in, and he gets clobbered and gets put inside. He's stuck inside, frustrated at all the matches he's missing. Anyway, while he's inside, he's getting all these exciting stories about the antics of United's star player, Donnell, Super Don, as he's known. He's possibly what used to be referred to as a Fancy Dan. I don't know, if I was more of a football person I'd be more qualified to talk about that, but he's kind of the flashy sort. Anyway, Striker is nearing the date of his release. Striker's released on a Monday morning. He goes and checks up on the football results, is the first thing he does. Then he heads back to his mum's, where he learns that his father is in hospital, but Mother seems to have a gentleman visitor. Ostensibly this is the TV repairman, but it seems more than that has been going on. Striker takes a dim view of this and calls his mother a whore. He doesn't linger around in the family home much longer, but heads into town where we encounter the first rather problematic reference to race relations, which are kind of characteristic of this kind of title. His first stop is at Woolworths, where his girlfriend Lynn is working, where she addresses him as Harold. You can call me what my mates call me, Striker. That's my name. Things seem a bit strained between Striker and Lynn, but the mood lifts slightly when she reveals that she's been to a couple of matches, and the talk turns to the exploits of Donnell. I've heard about him. The old bloke in the newsagents was rabbiting about him. All the girls think he's smashing. They started a fan club already. Anyway, Lynn's supervisor isn't thrilled about Striker hanging around in the shop, so he then heads off to catch up with his mates, first of which is Bazza, who's working on a building site, but he's got a fancy pair of bovver boots. He's got this pair of bovver boots. This sounds like a bit of a glam crossover, actually. He's got bright yellow bovver boots with red laces. Now you'd think he'd sort of keep them for matches and social occasions, but no, he's using them as work boots on a building site. Bazza confirms that Lynn has been to a couple of matches with them, and it's here that the name of Rantic pops up. Who is Rantic? Well, perhaps I shouldn't have said anything. So from the building site he heads off to the pub, where he's joined by his old mate Snadger. Snadger, also Clefty, which I think might be an indelicate reference to a facial disfigurement. They settle down for a couple of drinks, but it's here that Striker discovers the reality of Rantic, who joins them and has evidently established himself as the more dominant member of that little gang during Striker's absence. Striker finds himself frustratingly unable to counter Rantic in terms of wit, and finds the encounter rather troublesome. Joining Lynn later that evening, it transpires that during Striker's incarceration she has actually been with Rantic, which doesn't come as great news to Striker, but he attempts to re-establish himself in that situation by coercing Lynn rather into comes over as a rather rapey sexual act. Seems to take place underneath a trailer, and the mood is dampened further by someone coming and pissing against it. Not a terribly edifying scene, all in all. Anyway, Striker's actually been lined up with a bit of a job. The prison has decided that he's mechanically minded and have fixed him up with a sympathetic garage owner who has a track record of taking on old lags and attempting to help rehabilitate them. So he turns up and starts work, and Wednesday night is the night of the first match that he's going to get to after his release. So he heads along there. Again, Rantic is present and making his dominance felt, and that night is to be the night of the reckoning with the old man who dobbed Striker in. Striker gets to see Donnell in the flesh. We are united, boot boys. So yeah, there's a whole load of soccer related banter, highlights of which: United, champions, champions, wankers, wankers. And there's already this kind of fan chant for Donnell, which I'm guessing would go to the tune of Jesus Christ Superstar. I shall attempt it. Super Don, superstar, how many goals have you scored so far? which is pretty weak, even as football chants go. And we get a description of the star in question. Striker was still dwelling on the difference between Donnell and the rest of the team. He looked like an art student standing with a bunch of navvies. He was spare as a hairpin. He caught the ball on his heel and launched himself into an acrobatic scissor kick, which sent the ball screaming into the roof of the net. By the cringe! I think the location is meant to be a northern town. By the cringe. Who says by the cringe? What the... He must be good if Judd, i.e. the manager, would let him have his hair that long. I just love the football banter in this. It's astonishing. Diabolical. Rubbish, ref. Bazza was right. To Striker, it seemed that every time a United man moved into tackle, the whistle went. He must be bent. That was never a foul. Oh no, look at that bleeding pass. Blah blah blah. Take him off. Shut up, you ponce! Come off it, ref! Anyway, the match kicks off and there's a whole load more chants of wankers and what a load of rubbish and all the rest of it. But when half-time comes, Rantic initiates the move against the old man who at the tea hut. Now, Striker himself is just content to knock things around a bit and cause a bit of damage. But Rantic turns out to be a whole other level of thug. He administers a vicious kicking to the old man. Striker actually finds himself admonishing him to lay off. Anyway, the match continues and it looks as if United are in a bit of a corner. However, right at the last minute, Donnell works a minor miracle and saves the day. He's a cool bastard, that. Made of India rubber. So Donnell is clearly the man of the hour. In the meantime, Rantic continues to needle Striker and to undermine his former dominance. Eager to reassert himself in front of his mates, Striker hotwires a Ferrari and takes them for a fairly hair-raising joyride across the moors. While he puts the pedal to the metal, he kind of fantasises that he is Donnell moving in on a goal. What are you doing now, you daft sod? I'm evading tackles. You're mad. I'm Super Don. Anyway, they find themselves in a transport cafe where they try and pick up a couple of scrubbers. Impressed as these girls are with the Ferrari, this tactic actually pays off, and Striker gets his way with one of them on the bonnet of the car. Having a bird on the bonnet of a Ferrari. Fantastic. Super Don himself could not do better. Anyway, back to day-to-day reality. Striker seems to be doing okay in his job. His new boss seems fairly pleased with him, to the extent that he notices Striker admiring a motorbike that's in the display window, and he offers to let him have it on hire purchase. And the football season continues. Striker did not like going on the train because it was an excursion organised by the supporters club, and the supporters club were wankers. A male women's institute who had a hut behind the old stand which Striker used when he wanted a shit. Rantic continues his campaign of needling Striker. The other lads in the gang seem to be becoming increasingly impressed by Rantic. At this away match, Donnell, it turns out, isn't on such great form. He misses a chance to score a goal late in the match, and opinion amongst United's followers starts to turn against him. The song now mutates to Sean Donnell, super queer, looks like a girlie and dyes his hair. Rantic leads the gang into another bout of vicious hooliganism, which culminates in everyone having to sort of flee from the ground. Striker is intercepted by a policeman, but manages to get free and finding himself on his own in an unfamiliar town. He hops onto a bus which deposits him in an unfamiliar area where he bides a few hours before the late train back by heading into a local pub where he clocks the local rich kids planning a party. There's a young lady amongst them with whom Striker finds himself quite smitten. Striker talks his way back to the house party they're holding, and he succeeds in getting the young lady in question into the bedroom. Susie, as her name is, turns out to be quite up for a bit of rough. Oh, come on, hump me, you dirty, heaving Ted, evidently not having much of a grasp of the intricacies of youth culture. However, Stryker's fun is interrupted by an appearance of the police who raid the party. He once again finds himself in a position of being a bit of a fugitive. So he finds his way back home, but he feels he has unfinished business with Susie, and to that end he sets off on another evening on his motorbike in order to reconnect with her. However, she chooses to act on this occasion like her shit don't stink and gives him the cold shoulder. Mightily put out by this, he sets off on his way back. However, he undergoes a fairly hair-raising motorbike crash on his way back. For a moment it looks like it's killed him. Actually, it looks like the novel has ended prematurely. He comes to in the hospital being informed that he's had a very near miss. However, Stryker suspects unfair play, and an examination of the motorbike reveals that a hacksaw has been taken to vital components. He of course suspects Rantic of this misdeed, which of course turns out to be the case. Rantic is eager to get Stryker out of the picture and to move in on Lynn. There's a confrontation between them when Stryker turns up, at having recovered somewhat, turns up at Lynn's place to find her in bed with Rantic, and this leads to a final showdown between Stryker and Rantic and the rest of the gang at a match which goes off in true football hoolie style. Now, spoiler alert, Stryker actually comes out on top, but this isn't the ultimate confrontation within this book. There is also unfinished business between Stryker and that Ponce Donnell. Donnell has of course fallen from grace as Super Don. He is no longer the sort of wonder boy. He's grown complacent on his laurels, and performance-wise he's let things slide. The former golden boy is revealed to have allowed himself to degenerate into a cynical hack with no real appreciation of his own talents. Stryker views this as the ultimate betrayal. When the opportunity unexpectedly comes, Stryker takes Donnell to task face to face for letting the club down. Now, does this go Stryker's way? Well, without giving the ending away, perhaps his luck has held too long by this point. Now, this book, yeah, it's ludicrous, but it's no more ludicrous than most kind of youth cult pulp fiction. In fact, Christopher Wood, probably a more competent writer than the likes of Richard Allen, James Moffat. Moffat himself wasn't really particularly qualified to write in this area either. They're both kind of winging it to some degree. So it's a fairly standard bit of youth cult or yob pulp, but arguably better written than many of the contenders. It's like a lot of these kind of things, fairly riddled with the careless prejudices of the time, but interesting sort of artifact from that 70s kind of hooligan lit period.